ordinary man. Hutus are the people or race, if you prefer to say it like that, who are really controlling and are the higher class of the Rwandan country. The Tutsis are just upset and they're the lower class trying to fight and getting upset with these guys. The president has died and nobody is affected by this. No one is worried. They just start going into war against each other, trying to kill each other. Wives killing husbands, husbands killing wives, children killing grandparents, just right on site with machetes and rifles. With the Holocaust, Jews were taken to camps and beaten and starved, and they died over a period of time. The genocide was just a mass killing between everybody. With the Holocaust, they tried to contain everybody and have everybody go all together. The genocide, people were worried and scared, and they would disperse to every other area, trying to find help and sanctuary from the enemy. Of course, this never worked.
So in the Rwandan genocide, as Ron said, family was killing family, kids were killing grandparents, husbands were killing wives. And even in the book, the protagonist, Paul Rusesabagina, he says how neighbors, they were killing their own neighbors. And if you were sleeping with your spouse, you could wake up the next morning and they would be on top of you with a knife. So also, the Holocaust was very planned. It was very systematic, like the Germans. They were very resourceful, they were very powerful, and they used a whole array of killing techniques. Like some Jews died on the train on the way to the concentration camps from starvation or disease, and even just the lack of air, because so many people were being trapped in like one freight cart. And then in the concentration camps, they worked as slaves, making machines and just making goods for the Germans. So they would die from exhaustion and sometimes from breathing in too much smoke. Also, the Germans used walks in the snow as a form of torture and a form of killing. So Jews would die from the cold or just from exhaustion, as said before.
What this group was trying to argue was, well, their first statement said a genocide is a mass killing of a nationality group, a racial group, or political group. The Hutus and Tutsis are, in a sense, a branch of a racial group. This would count as their definition of a genocide, along with the race of Jews that were killed in the Holocaust. This compares because they're both, in a sense, racial groups.
So the main argument of the other side saying that you can't compare these two mass murders was that the definition of a genocide, which I have here, was that the deliberate killing of people who belong to a particular racial, political, or cultural group. Then are they stating that these are not both genocides? And then if they are genocides, then why can't you compare the two? They are both just a group of mass killings of innocent people based on the fact that they're different. Does it really matter that they're different because it's religion or their race? Either way, there's still, a death is a death. You can't bring someone back from the dead after they've been murdered. They also said that it was different because it was elongated. They said that the killing of the Jews was, it took more years to kill just as many people. But they also said that the Rwandan genocide was not well organized. Then, if it's not well organized, then how can you kill 800,000 people in less than 100 days?
In its own way, because if you look at the Holocaust, yeah, they were put into gas chambers and there was other ways of killing, but during the Rwandan genocide, they had their own way of killing, and it was still in a mass murder way. Like James had said, but with the church, of how they all got put into the church and they were all killed. They're all in a gas chamber and they were all being killed. So you can look at the two that way. There's a similar.
A genocide is the deliberate and systematic destruction of a racial, political, or social group. Let me read that one more time. A genocide is the deliberate and systematic destruction of a racial, political, or social group. Now, systematic, words that are used to describe systematic are plan and method, and deliberate may be described as purposeful, studied, slow in deciding, or carefully considered. None of which that happened during the Rwandan genocide was planned, slow in deciding, or studied. It was a mass murder of people with absolutely no reason to it at all. The Tutsi and Hutu, which were the two groups fighting one another, were both killing each other in mass murderings and slaughterings with absolutely no purpose. Also, another key point was that during the Holocaust, the Jews received help from the Allies, such as Great Britain, France, and the U.S., while in Rwanda they received absolutely no help from anyone. A key point during the book was that the Rwandans tried to receive help by asking for support from an airplane, which they could not even get, which lives were valued at $24 a person.
I rendered a decision in favor of no. I thought you guys did a very good job of breaking apart the yes side's definition of genocide at the end, Guppy. Doing a good job of explaining what the actual conflict was and how the conflicts differed from one another, and doing a pretty good job of acknowledging some of the similarities, but then also using those to elaborate more on the differences.
I concur with Steve, and do not think that it is fair to compare the two. You guys did a good job of educating us on what went on both sides in the Holocaust and in Rwanda. I really liked the ending argument. You were confident. All of you were very confident when you were speaking up there. Made eye contact. Didn't really have to rely off of the notes. So good job there.
We're all the same. I'm probably personally a little more in agreement with the for side, but definitely on the debate side, I think you guys won. I think you guys started out strong and then just couldn't pack the punch behind it. I don't think you guys dealt with the Civil War issue. Was it a Civil War, or why wasn't it a Civil War? Because to me, that was kind of their argument, that it was a Civil War. And I would like to hear more about was it or wasn't it. And I think you guys did a good job with that. They're using their own definition and coming back and kind of, squashing the lid on that. So I think everyone did a good job, and be proud of.
UN soldiers were in Rwanda and they were just standing there. The rebel soldiers would not attack wherever the UN soldiers were. And so just having the UN soldiers there kept the rebel army from attacking. So if we would have just put US soldiers in, it would have had the same effect.
Bully and bystander victim situation. So the bully was the Hutu rebel army, and the victim was the Tutsis, and the bystander was the US. And we were just watching as the Hutus were killing all these Tutsis, and we weren't doing anything about it.
The US was aware of it. They weren't oblivious to it. And we had the power to do it. Like we said, the strong government, strong military, strong economy. And the Tutsis and the government army were helpless while they were being beaten, tortured, raped, and killed.
In schools today, we are told that you should not be a bystander when people are getting bullied. But the U.S. government stood by while 800,000 people were being killed because of the group that it belonged to based on ethnicity. And the government just stood by and watched.
That no American soldier would want to fight for Rwanda because they would be risking their life, and it's not even anything that would benefit the United States.
And also, besides what you're talking about, besides money and all that thing, maybe we should consider more about the moral issues. Maybe we should stand by the side of how many people will be died in that situation, so we could step up and help. And also, your people said that UN should be help instead of the US. However, US is the leader in UN, and US joined UN. It is because the world expect them to do something when the things like genocide happen in the world.
Let's think that Shirley and Nicole are fighting, and like a big muscular man is US. Like he can easily separate them. Why not separate them?
Why would because it's just gonna like, what if they don't stop fighting and then there's just more damage to come?
You have the power to stop that.
Yeah, a big strong man can stop 2 girls, but maybe another country can't stop like internal conflict within.
It's the same thing. I do see what you're saying.
If you look at how far the U.S. and Rwanda are,
Maybe Turkey should have got involved.
Oh yeah.
if you pull Nicole and Shirley apart,
I'll tell you
Turkey
this.
should have gotten
Let
involved.
me tell you this. I'll tell you this. This is most people's opinion on the subject. Most people's opinion on the subject in general who are involved in U.S. politics is that the United States should not have gotten involved. However, the reasoning is totally different. Okay, the reasoning is more reliant upon the Gulf War and what was going on in U.S. foreign policy before. And if you had taken the moral stance a little harder, that probably would have been what sort of undermines that argument. Does that make sense?
Saying it is a moral matter, okay? You're saying that it is not the responsibility because it's moral, and then you start going on about how it's an internal conflict. There we go. Internal conflict. You got really close to saying what we wanted you to say, and that it wasn't a genocide. Which, if it's not a genocide, then there's no political obligation. It's simply moral. And for me, it was the yes one because they had a very strong argument that it was a genocide, and you guys got close right at the end about separating it from other genocides that they cited, but you ran out of time, and that argument wasn't as strong as it needed to be.
For me, Team No, you guys danced around it a little bit. It was too little, too late. You're on the right track, but then you backtracked and you actually called it a genocide yourself, which goes against your entire argument, or the argument you should have made. Team Yes, you guys are very well prepared. You came in, made your point. Your rebuttals directly rebutted what they said, when your rebuttal kind of just talked about the facts, and you didn't really seem ready to go, per se. So, Team Yes.
Yeah, so same thing that these guys have been saying. Jalen, you said it was a genocide. You can't say it's a genocide. We wanted you to argue that it was a civil war. Give us some numbers. Maybe tell us how many Tutsis and how many Hutus were killed so that we can compare those and convince us that it was a civil war and an internal conflict and not just a mass killing of one killing the other, right? This side over here clearly stated that it was a moral obligation and a political obligation for the U.S. to step in, so I'm also going with the yeses.